Hello! Today's stories come from r slash ProRevenge. Today we have three stories starting with Don't Mess with the Trash Man. Longtime lurker of this sub, first time poster. I think I write quite well for a former garbage collector, so here goes with the story. Back in the late 90s, I worked for my brother who owned a small private trash hauling company. So small that I was the only employee and he had just two rear load trash trucks. On this day, we were running together on one of the trucks, him as the driver and me as the helper. We had placed a 4 cubic yard dumpster for a homeowner who was using it for a garage cleanout. After emptying the dumpster once or twice, the homeowner stopped paying his trash removal bill. After repeated attempts to contact the homeowner with no response, we decided it was time to get the dumpster back for use by someone who would pay for the service. When we got to the home, the dumpster was sitting right in front of the garage with about 30 feet from the street to the garage. Of course, the dumpster was overloaded with all the remaining rubbish from the homeowner's cleanout. My brother backed up to the dumpster, parked the truck, and we jumped out. We knocked on the doors to the house to see if anyone was home who we could talk to, or if there was a payment taped to the door. But no one answered, and there was no payment. With no response, we proceeded to empty the dumpster into our truck. Most times, we were considerate and picked up trash that fell onto the ground while emptying a dumpster. But today, we let it fall without the slightest concern. It took less than 5 minutes to load the truck with the contents of the dumpster. Once the dumpster was empty, my brother jumped into the truck and we left with the dumpster, with me riding on the back of the truck. However, as we pulled out of the driveway, I was unlatching a turnbuckle that kept the truck's tailgate mounted firmly to the truck's body. Once on the street, my brother stopped so I could drop the dumpster to the ground. As he reversed the truck into the homeowner's driveway, I was unlatching the turnbuckle on the other side of the truck. As soon as the truck came to a stop in front of the garage where the dumpster once stood, I was already at the outside controls of the truck, pulling the handle to raise the tailgate. In one swift motion, I then pulled the other handle, the one that pushed the blade inside the trash truck, to the rear, ejecting the trash that once was in the dumpster back onto the homeowner's driveway. See, when we had come for the dumpster, we had just come from the landfill, so the truck had been empty. All the trash in the truck had come from the homeowner's dumpster. We unloaded the truck in about 15 seconds. As we pulled out of the driveway, I jogged alongside the truck, simultaneously pushing both handles to retract the blade and lower the tailgate. I quickly latched the turnbuckles and reattached the dumpster to the truck. After I jumped back into the truck, we drove off, but we noticed movement behind us. A couple teens who had been inside the house had jumped into a car and were giving chase to us. We paid them no mind. When we got back to the shop, the teens confronted my brother about the mess we had left in their driveway. After asking if they were the homeowner and hearing they were the homeowner's kids, my brother told them he was not talking to them. He told them to have the homeowner contact our lawyer. Since they were trespassing, we shooed them off our property. The bill went to collections with an unknown resolution. But we got our dumpster back. No payment, no service. I'm assuming it would have been a cost to OP's brother if they had in fact taken the trash and dumped it. So really, they were simply collecting their property. On to the comments. There's a funny one from a Redditor who learns he's been unknowingly messing with his trash man and also suffering the consequences. Semi-Operational said, "Sounds like the homeowners are the real trash in this story." Coder Joe 1 added, "Sounds like you may have done this before and or since then." OP replied, "Enough to know that as long as the trash stayed off public property, it was a civil matter. Good luck finding a sympathetic judge when you didn't pay your bill." Deathwagon said, "We shred paper with trucks similar to a city trash truck with a lift on the side. The easiest way to get payment is to go and pick up the bin and ask them which floor they'd like us to dump the paper on so we can take the empty bin. I've also upset my green waste collector by overloading the bins with rocks and gravel so many times while working on my yard. I've watched the lift struggle to pull it up, and it takes him much longer. So now, every time he picks up my bin, he dumps it in the truck and then drives forward 10 feet before putting it back down and blocks my driveway. So now when I get home from work, I have to get out of my truck, move the bin, and then park. I'm the only person on my street that has to do this." Warple still added, "Green waste should just be green waste, no rocks or gravel." Deathwagon, "Really? My bad then." Internal Kiwi said, "Treat people like trash, expect to get taken out like trash." Cole Morris said, "You seem more literate than 99% of people I've seen on the internet, to be honest." Our second story is titled, "My £8.50 Revenge on My Cheating, Thieving Ex." When I was at uni, I started dating this guy. At first, he was wonderful, dedicated to his studies, fun to be around, attentive, and always surprising me with things, working hard at his job, etc. Then, bit by bit, things unraveled. He started skipping classes. Then he barely bothered to go at all. Worse still, he never helped around the house. Never washed up, cleaned up, did laundry, nothing. He was even fired from his job for too many no shows. All he wanted to do was sit at home and play Xbox or browse the message boards and forums. This was in the days before social media when dinosaurs roamed the earth. This left me having to pick up extra shifts, sometimes double and triple shifts, all while going to class and studying. I later learned that this was a pattern for him. He'd be really dedicated to whatever he set his heart on, but then get bored and fall back into old habits. Then he'd find a new passion and rinse and repeat. I knew I should have ended the relationship much sooner, but I held out hope that he would snap out of it, that maybe it was just exam stress getting to him. I desperately wanted things to go back to how they were, but it was not meant to be. I caught him cheating and threw him out. I was so stressed with everything that it wasn't until the next day that our joint savings account crossed my mind. There was a little over £5,000 in there, and bar a few hundred from him, the rest was money I had saved. I checked the account, and it was all gone. My ex had cleaned out the account and moved into a new flat with his side chick. I called the bank. There was nothing they could do. He was authorized on the account. I contacted the police. They told me there was nothing they could do since it was a joint account, so nothing criminal had happened. They suggested taking it to civil court, but said I'd probably spend more money than I got back in legal fees, so it likely wasn't worth it. My ex had stolen £5,000 and there was nothing I could do about it. I felt like such an idiot. I got even angrier when I saw his posts on various forums boasting about his new game consoles, new games, new TVs, and gadgets, all bought with my money. I'm not usually a vengeful person. Petty on occasion, sure, but I've never wanted to exact revenge as much as I did right then, and I knew just how to do it. While I was a student, I temped every summer to help pay for my studies. One such job had been for a debt collection agency. The work was as bad as you can imagine, but it paid really well, and it was only for a few months. My ex had been dodging debt for many years, and he was very proud of that fact. He was also proud of the fact that his debt was close to being statute barred, and he hadn't paid a penny. For those of you who don't know, in the UK, creditors have about 6 years to collect a debt, and then it becomes statute barred. That means the money is still owed, but creditors have no legal way to enforce payment, such as using bailiffs. My ex was a few months away from reaching statute barred status. However, what a lot of people don't know is that making a payment on that debt resets the clock. If you pay any amount, then that 6 years starts from scratch. Previously, I had used my insider knowledge to help him dodge the debt. Now, I would use it to hit him where it hurt. By the end of our relationship, I was handling everything, including his debts. I had the paperwork, so I knew who he owed and how much. I called his creditors up. I was honest and said I was a friend calling to make a payment on his behalf. I didn't pretend to be him because that would be a big legal no-no. They weren't allowed to disclose any details, but they were able to take payment. I paid the minimum I could on each debt, about £1 on most, but one had a minimum payment of £1.50. It was the best £8.50 I have ever spent. I also made sure to give them his new address and contact details, as well as his parents' address. Having worked in the biz, I knew they wouldn't change the address since I wasn't the account holder, but they would note it. They had various systems where they could search for his name against that address and see if anything came up. If they got a hit, they'd change the address. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. A few months rolled by. Then it happened. His posts on the forums went from boasting about his new gaming PC to panic about a court date. He called me and begged for advice. I told him to F off. Seeing I wouldn't help, he asked for advice in the forums. One of his online friends told him not to turn up to court. That way, they wouldn't be able to prosecute without him there. It was terrible advice that was 100% untrue. In fact, not showing up is one of the worst things you can do, especially in civil court. This was getting better and better. The court date came and went. My ex, naturally, didn't go. A few weeks later, my ex posted photos of his empty flat. Bailiffs had cleaned him out and taken every last one of his shiny new gadgets and toys. On top of that, he ended up with several CCJs, county court judgments. These are a big deal and can seriously damage your credit history, making it hard to get bank accounts outside of basic ones, near impossible to get credit, including getting a mortgage. And it can also make it hard to rent a place, since many landlords don't like renting to people with CCJs, as they're considered high risk. He also won't be able to find jobs in the financial sector. Now that he was broke and didn't have nice things, his side chick left him. I never got my £5,000 back, but it felt good to see everything he bought with his ill-gotten gains taken away. Hope that £5,000 was worth it. For anyone wondering how a student accrued 6 years of debt, he started at the university I attended when he was 25. He had initially gone to a different university at 18 but dropped out at 19 and went into the world of work. Then he convinced his parents to fund a business degree. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. And for anyone worried about the age gap, I deferred my uni start date by a few years so I could travel. I was 22 when we started dating. He was 26. OP's ex definitely chose the wrong person to mess with. He probably figured she was way too nice to do anything like this, since she practically bent over backwards to take care of all of his needs and wants. Let's check out the comments where OP provides additional details. Someone said, "You learned a lesson too. No joint account unless married. It is too easy to cut and run otherwise, and nothing can be done. This won't stop an account from being cleaned out, but can be brought up in divorce proceedings." OP replied, "Yes, it was a very hard but important lesson. I just wish it hadn't cost me £5,000. It was my own stupid fault. I took that lesson to heart." Someone else replied, "I live near a military base in the US, and I've heard horror stories of young Marines giving their girlfriends access to their accounts or even signing a power of attorney for them, go overseas on deployment, and then come home to find an empty apartment or house, accounts emptied, etc. There's some truly heartless people out there, man." OP replied, "Yep, there are some real leeches out there. So sad that so many get taken advantage of." Foolish Stone said, "Wild guess. The joint account, was it his idea?" OP replied, "Not exactly. We opened it because we were saving to be able to afford to live in a house instead of pokey student flats. We wanted lots of room with a nice sized garden and everything. So we were talking about savings and we found the savings account with a really good deal on the interest rates. Basically, the interest rate got higher and higher the more you put in. And you also got a bonus interest rate on top of that the longer you left money in there. So it was sort of a joint decision. I don't think he specifically suggested it." Cathjoy said, "Oh man, as a former debt collection agent, this was absolutely genius. Spot on. Also, extra points that might have messed up his business degree. I mean, assuming he never completed it. Many high managerial positions mean taking credit checks, and CCJs discount you a lot of the time. And he's definitely discounted from working in finance. Also, maybe you spoke to me? I did get a call from a woman who did just this. She called and advised she was calling to make a payment because her ex, the account holder, had cheated. I was just training at the time, and I thought, okay, weird. But then I spoke to my supervisor about it, and he burst out laughing and told me what she had done. Reset his statute barred counter. OP replied, "Probably not me, as I kept it as neutral as possible and definitely didn't mention he had cheated. I was just, yeah, I'm calling to pay on behalf of account holder, and I was very careful not to say he asked me to or anything, in case it led to legal issues. I didn't want to give him anything he could use to wriggle out of it. But that's wild that somebody else did that. Awesome." Our third story is one of workplace revenge. Manager insists I do my job properly. Happy to comply, sir. In early 2020, I was hired under the title Assistant Manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires spelled with an I if you're American, and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owns several stores. I reported directly to my manager, who then reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy. I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part, as I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months. He would also knock off work early and start drinking beer, whilst the rest of us continued to work. I remember when he found out that I participated in mixed martial arts training sessions after work, he tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly, this guy didn't like me, and I was starting to get the feeling that he was trying to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, my employment. I became even more certain of that with what happened next. Story. During the few months that I had worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and sales records did not match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour after work trying to figure out where the errors were coming from, whilst the manager would simply throw his hands in the air and exclaim that he had no idea how this was happening. The recurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our sales and invoicing software. Other times, there would be less. I was, at the time, an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree. I was already suspicious of the cash being out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up until this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me. And boy, was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off. During this time, I managed a personal record in store sales and also noticed something interesting. The cash was never out at the end of each shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company, given I was acting manager during the time my manager was away. I was expected to report to the owner every day and explained what had been occurring whilst the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful that the owner would be having a word with the manager about the discrepancies. However, I was also wary as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager, that the manager would immediately know it was me who reported this. When the manager returned to work, he immediately approached me with a disgruntled look on his face. I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies? You should focus on doing your job properly. Then this wouldn't happen. I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though. I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place blame on me. Given his reaction, I'm even more suspicious at this point. He wants me to do my job properly, eh? Malicious compliance ensues. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager. Behind his back, I began examining all of his sale transactions and invoices with a fine comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty. When it came to a few cash sales, my manager was doing the following. Example, would tell the customer the price is $200 if he pays cash, would discount the price by $50 in the sales and invoicing software, would put the extra cash into the till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash up at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket this extra cash whilst no one was around. Though he was very foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled. Hence why the cash would be up some days, didn't swindle enough, or the cash would be down, swindled too much. End. I took screenshots of the discounts he had been giving on sales and sent them to the business owner along with a report. A report with a detailed description of my findings. The report also showed that on all days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. When he was there, well, the owner was infuriated. This man had been his trusted employee for years. The owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test, pee in a cup style, on the same day he found out. And no surprises, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite the meth habit. This was most likely his sole motive for stealing cash, and the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in this store, and so the thought of a manager walking around high as a kite wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professional. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred under this manager's watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract and was later taken to court by the owner in an attempt to recover the stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. Well played, OP. Well played. There are some punny funs in the comments. Someone said, I bet the manager and owner have some kind of history. The immediate drug test shows that the owner knew exactly what to look for. OP replied, I believe so. Manager had worked for the owner for more than a decade. They were practically buddies. Call of the While said, nice detective work, OP. I guess you could say that guy really methed his life up, huh? Huh? Taps microphone. Is this thing on? Headband RTR said, it's picking up the crickets just fine. Call of the While. Sheesh, tough room. Loosens tie. I used to think you had to be high on drugs to be a great actor. It wasn't until I lost everything and got into rehab that I learned it wasn't called meth head acting. No? Come on. Method? Meth head? Well, that's my time, folks. You've been a great audience. Please remember to tip your servers, but bend at the knees so you don't strain your back. I'm joking. Please don't touch them. Krusty Barnacle Jones said, Hey, I'm an American and we actually call them the spiny black bits, not tires or tires. And I'd appreciate our culture being represented appropriately. Shaking my head. The Fired Drake said, Skinny black bits? I think you mean go go circles. Krusty Barnacle Jones replied, Nah, that turn of phrase is exclusive to the Midwest, actually. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.